It's 6:45 a.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Lal Mallavarachi, read by Soundithavam. The World Bank commends Sri Lanka on the progress made with steady implementation of the World Bank-supported reforms. The government held extensive discussions with bilateral creditors to come into agreement with them. The funeral of the Sarvodaya founder, Dr. APR will be held this evening at the Independence Square. Another phase of the Jagamu Sri Lanka program begins in Mannar today. An initiative to distribute 735 metric tons of fortified rice commences. In foreign news, the US calls for calm after officials say Israeli missile hit Iran. In sports, the sports ministry says it has spent more than 8.2 million rupees for Viren Nethasinga's international badminton tournaments. State Finance Minister Shehan Semasinghe says that the World Bank Vice President for South Asia, Martin Reiser, who he met in Washington on the sidelines of the IMF World Bank annual meetings, commended Sri Lanka on the progress made with steady implementation of the World Bank-supported reforms. The World Bank's Vice President for the South Asia region recollected the situation Sri Lanka was in just a few months ago and opined that the country is in a far better position today, the State Minister said. State Minister Semasinghe said that they discussed the forthcoming reforms that will unlock the next round of the World Bank financing. He said that the World Bank Vice President assured continued support to Sri Lanka. State Finance Minister Shehan Semasinghe further said that the government is currently having engagements with commercial creditors and private bondholders and expressed confidence that it will reach a solution enabling the country to be debt sustainable. The State Minister said that the government has had extensive discussions with bilateral creditors with the assistance of the International Monetary Fund officials, and the government has been able to come into agreement with them. We have special official creditor committees co-chaired by Japan, India and France and are happy that we reached agreements with all our bilateral creditors, he said. The State Minister also said that the country has shown a growth following a contraction of 6 consecutive quarters. The funeral of the Sarvodaya Shramadana movement founder Dr. A.T. Aryaratne with state honours will be held today at 4 p.m. at the Independence Square. His remains are now lying at the Sarvodaya headquarters at Rawatawatha Morachua till 12 noon today before being taken to the Independence Square. Dr. A.T. Aryaratne passed away last Tuesday after a brief illness at a private hospital. He was 92 years old at the time of his death. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Another phase of the Jagamu Sri Lanka program organised by the Ministry of Labour and Foreign Employment will be held today and tomorrow at the Mannar Municipal Council Stadium. The program will focus on the specified skilled worker visa project that provides an opportunity to earn a high salary in Japan. The minister said several measures have been undertaken to provide Sri Lankans the opportunity to access job opportunities in Japan under a special visa category, and that interested persons can now apply for jobs in Japan through the special visa project. The Agriculture and Plantation Industries Ministry implemented a project to cultivate maize for animal feed using the land of the Polonnaruwa Kandakadu farm belonging to the National Livestock Development Board. Minister Mahinda Amaravira has instructed the NLDB to prepare an environmental assessment report regarding the Kandakadu farm plantation project by drawing attention to environmental and archaeological facts. The NLDB chairman, Professor H.A. Cyril, handed over the Environment Impact Assessment report prepared by an expert panel regarding the proposed Kandakadu Agricultural Development Project to the minister. According to this report, it has been decided to maintain the parks reserved for wild elephants and places of archaeological value as they are, and not to use those areas for cultivation. Also, this environmental report has given necessary approval for the cultivation of maize without any harm to the environment. 4 individuals, including naval officers, have been arrested while in possession of crystal methamphetamine. The officers of the Mullaeriyawa police made the arrest yesterday. Accordingly, 510 grams of ice, estimated to be worth 7.5 million rupees, was found on the suspects at the time of the arrest. Among the arrested individuals are 2 lieutenant commanders of the Sri Lanka Navy. And that's local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Vedamahatmya.
The distribution of fortified rice provided by the World Food Programme on behalf of the programme initiated under the instructions of President Ranil Wickremesinghe to provide a nutritious meal for school students commenced at the Wayangoda warehouse complex yesterday. According to the President's Media Division, fortified rice is being provided for school meals in an effort to reduce the iron deficiency among school children. The distribution will be conducted under the supervision of the Director General for the Partnership Secretariat for the World Food Programme Corporation, which operates under the purview of the Presidential Secretariat, and came to you in the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Vedamahatmya.
On to Watchlight, the health authorities say that there is an increasing trend of diarrhea among children after the new year, and the viral flu and influenza are also rapidly spreading among children. At present, the Lady Ridgeway Hospital's consultant pediatrician, Dr. Deepal Pereira, advised parents to immediately seek medical attention if their children have been suffering from fever continuously for 3 to 4 days, and came to you in Watchlight.
Coming up, World News.
Making headlines this morning, the US calls for calm after officials say Israeli missile hit Iran. Children among 7 dead in Russian strike on Dnipropetrovsk region. And the US Congress close to passing long-awaited Ukraine aid. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has repeated calls for de-escalation in the Middle East after an apparent Israeli strike on Iran. Speaking from a G7 meeting in Italy, Blinken says Washington was not involved in any offensive operation. 2 US officials told the CBS News that an Israeli missile struck Iran overnight. The Israeli government has not officially commented. Iranian state media cite unconfirmed reports of explosions in the central province of Isfahan but downplayed reports of an attack. 2 Russian strikes in Ukraine's central Dnipropetrovsk region have killed at least 7 people, including 2 children, officials say. The station in the main city Dnipro came under attack, and several homes were further hit east in Sanovkov. President Volodymyr Zelensky said the attack showed that all Ukrainian cities needed more advanced air defenses. In a separate strike, Ukraine said that for the first time it has downed a strategic long-range bomber in Russia. After months of delay, the U.S. House of Representatives appears poised to hold a vote on tens of billions of dollars in American military aid for Ukraine and Israel this weekend. Both measures have vocal opponents in Congress. However, their hopes of passage have hinged on a fragile bipartisan coalition to overcome daunting procedural and legislative obstacles. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson has said he is determined to bring the matter to a vote, even if it may put his hold on power in jeopardy. The Ukraine vote will be closely watched in Kyiv, which has warned of the urgent need for fresh support from its allies as Russia makes steady gains on the battlefield. Back to the headlines of the world news. The US calls for calm after officials say Israeli missile hit Iran. Children among 7 dead in Russian strike on Dnipropetrovsk region, and the US Congress close to passing long-awaited Ukraine aid. That concludes this bulletin of world news, and on to development news. The KSP Ambalipitia paper mill, which was recently restored, has commenced operations after a period of 10 years. According to the Board of Investment of Sri Lanka, the paper mill was inaugurated by the governor of the Sabragama province, Navin Disanayake, yesterday. The Ambalipitia paper mills, belonging to the National Paper Company Limited, is the second oldest paper mill in the country, set up in 1978. However, the operations came to a standstill in 2003, and though it resumed operations in 2011, it became a very short stint as the paper mill was closed again in 2012. The project, with an initial investment of $16 million, aims to manufacture industrial-grade papers for the direct and indirect export market by upgrading machinery and infrastructure. That came to you in development news.
Moving on with sports news.
The Sports Ministry has spent more than 82 lakhs for Viren Nethasinga's international badminton tournaments, which helped him to reach Olympics qualifying standard, said the Sports Director General, Professor Rear Admiral Shemal Fernando. He said a pathway has been made to the road to Olympics. Sports Minister Harin Fernando had given all the requirements and instructed him to look after the super athletes' requirements, and Viren was the first athlete to reach his target. From last January, Viren got the chance to take part in 8 international badminton tournaments with the assistance of the ministry, as well as the Sri Lanka badminton headed by President Rohan De Silva. That's sports news. We take a look at business news next.
Go ekak tiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු ගීන හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Oil prices jumped more than 3% yesterday after Israel carried out a strike on Iran, triggering fears of an expanding war in the Middle East. Israel carried out a limited military strike against Iran and is currently assessing the strike's effectiveness and damage caused. The operation was conducted in the early hours yesterday. That's business news. Economic news up next.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak tiyana youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු ගීන හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
In economic news, Krishna Srinivasan, the director of the Asia and Pacific Department at the International Monetary Fund, has said that there was hope for a deal with Sri Lanka's sovereign bondholders despite some setback. Sri Lanka had the first round of direct discussions with sovereign bondholders in London, where a deal was not finalized, but the government agreed to bonds linked to economic performance. That's economic news.
Weather report.
The Meteorology Department says that showers or thundershowers will occur at several places in the western and Sabaragamuwa provinces, also in the Galle and Matara districts during the night. Showers or thundershowers may occur at a few places in the north-central, northwestern, Uva and central provinces, also in the Mannar district during the afternoon or night. Misty conditions can be expected at some places in the Sabaragamuwa and central provinces, also in Kalutara, Galle and the Matara districts during the morning. To conclude this bulletin of news, a recap of the headlines. The World Bank commends Sri Lanka on the progress made with steady implementation of the World Bank-supported reforms. The government held extensive discussions with bilateral creditors to come into agreement with them. The funeral of the Saravodaya founder, Dr. A.T. Aryaratna, will be held this evening at the Independence Square. Another phase of the Jayagamu Sri Lanka program begins in Mannar today. An initiative to distribute 735 metric tons of fortified rice commences. US calls for calm after officials say Israeli missile hit Iran. And the sports ministry says it has spent more than 8.2 million rupees for Viren at the Singers' international badminton tournaments. With that, we conclude this morning's news broadcast, and now it's back to your host, Sanal, for the announcements, followed by the morning show. Back to you, Sanal.
Well, thank you very much, Soundi, for the main news broadcast, and your time moves on to 58 minutes down 6 o'clock. We have received the obituary notice to be broadcast on Radio Sri Lanka this morning. Once again, we have received an obituary notice to be broadcast on Radio Sri Lanka this morning. Janaza of Sitti Sultan Bivi, daughter of Maroom Nahur Mira, Shahul Hamid and Mariam Bivi, wife of Maroom Muhammad Qasim, Shahul Hamid, sister of SHPM Nizar, Richardson Company, Maruma Mahmuda Bivi, Kemlabad, Maroom Yusuf Ali, Zubair, Shifa, mother of SHM Bashir, Habiba, Maroom Kanzul, Zulfi Rifka, mother-in-law of Marima Gulam, Maroom Hilal, Rakib, grandmother of Maroom Imran Insaf, Dr. Ifham Silmia, Samia, Simar, Amira, Hassan, Rama, Ramina, Rahima, Rihab, Janaza will be bad at the Kupiawat Juma Masjid for Asar. Repeating the obituary notice, Janaza of Sitti Sultan, BV of daughter Maroom Nahur Meera, Shahul Hamid and Mariam BV, wife of Maroom Muhammad Qasim, Shahul Hamid, sister of SHPM Nizar, Richardson Company, Maruma Mahmuda BV, Kemlapad, Maroom Yusuf Ali, Zubair Shifa, mother of SHM Bashir, Habiba Maroom Kansul, Zulfi Bashir, Habiba, Maroom Kansi, Zulfi Rifka, mother-in-law of Marima, Gulam, Maroom Hilal, Rakib, grandmother of Maroom Imran, Insaf, Dr. Ifham Silmia, Samia, Simar, Amira, Hassan, Rahma, Rahima, Rihab. Janaza will be barred at the Kupiawata Juma Masjid for Azhar. And with that, we end the obituary notice, and your time moves on to 1 minute down 7 o'clock. Good morning.